Well, salutations. What's happening, everybody? It's me, Robert Phoenix. We are back for another edition of the Astro Weather with a very dramatic sky behind us today. What is it? Red skies at night. Uh, I don't know. I'm not a sailor, but there's however one. Let's check in. Let's see who we have into his house. Of course, right at the top of the batting order. Michael, sister, Nina, what's happening? DJ MC, Mary Grether, right behind him. Soul Traveler, KK, California Contrarian, the lovely Maya Rose, she's here. Mia Manolo. Hi, Mia. Welcome to the show. Let's see, Athena. Greetings, Athena. There she is, the Queen of Speed, Nora Rashid. Maria de Ange. From the great country of France, my birthplace. Green-eyed crow. Green-eyed crow. What's happening? Moonsprouts here. Jackie Delario. Summertime, 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 summertime. Okay. I like that song. And it has a prominent role in a movie called Fingers with Harvey Keitel. Fingers is one of my favorite movies of all time because it's so fucking weird. If you haven't seen Fingers, I highly recommend it, although it is not for the faint of heart. The idea of the plot of Fingers is kind of absurd in some ways, but that's what makes it so great. Harvey Keitel plays a concert pianist, right? Like he's got real chops, but he's also a kind of a psychopath, and his father is a loan shark, and so his father has loaned this guy some money, and the guy's not paying it back. And he's not just an average guy; he's kind of a kind of an asshole crime guy. So Harvey Keitel has to go get the money from the guy. So while Harvey Keitel is a talented classical pianist, he also is an incredibly violent psychopath. And he plays that song, Summertime, 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 in Fingers. It's perfect. Anyway, thank you for that, Jackie. Joe Potter, what's happening, Joe Potter? Let me get back to the actual size. Carly, hey Carly, meow meow. Tree astrology. What's happening? Christina Jerzik joining us once again. It is solstice time, isn't it? It is that day. Almost. Almost. Tomorrow, I think, is when do we go into Cancer? Because we're at 29 Gemini today. So tomorrow, I mean, typically it is the 20th, right? So tomorrow it is it's either tomorrow or much later tonight we go into zero Cancer. But we start the day at 29 Gemini. The final gasp of Gemini. It came in like a absolute bullet train, and it's kind of petering out of the station. Let's see. Nora wants to adopt orphan kids from Gaza. I wonder how I could do that and help where I can. Well, that's a beautiful sentiment. I think what you need to do is you need to get in touch with Kamala Harris. She will help you with that because she is the mamala. And as the mamala, she is in charge of orphan children from other countries, particularly Palestine, Gaza. So get in touch with Kamala, the mamala, and she'll hook you up. Southwest Virginia checking in. Orlando, I was on cup number 2 today. And that's before the show even started. There she is, the lovely and talented one. Dr. Joan S. Shirley Lo Schiavo. Hot fun in the summertime. There we go. There's another good tune. Sly and the Family Stone. Catherine Rosen. Mars at zero Cancer. Hey, same as me. I got that same Mars at zero Cancer. Me and you, Catherine. Me and you right here. We're on the same Mars train. Brandy's checking in from New Orleans. It's 81 and windy. We've had a very temperate summer so far, or late spring in Texas. I hope it continues. It's been great. We've had rain. The last couple of years here have been absolutely hellish. So this is a nice reprieve. Uh, Garden Girl, what's happening, Gigi? Summertime is upon us. Stay cool. Absolutely. Knight of Cups. Get ready for hot house. I don't know if it's going to be hot. I was thinking about that today, actually. Yesterday too. I'm saying, what is going to be the weather forecast for the summer? There's just no fire in the sky. I mean, if you're just looking at planetary combustion from its astrological position, there's no fire in the sky. Or Mars has left Aries. Uh, yeah, like we don't get any fire in the sky until August with Leo, late July, August with Leo, and maybe a little Mercury, Venus because they're trotting together, right? And they just went into Cancer. Um, I think it's going to be a temperate and cool summer. Now we may have a few days or a few patches of intense heat, but just from the astrological place, I'm not feeling it because I was trying to feel into it. Like I'm glad you brought that up, KFC. I was like, what's this summer going to be like? I'm like, it's not going to be hot. It is not going to be as hot as normal. Anyway, who else got there? The man Tom. Tom has moved. He's moved. He is no longer in the living room. He's in the sunroom. So he's moved. Let's see. Liddy Lou, it is nice here in Texas. Yes, indeed. Veronica's Barn. Nice and chilly in California. Hey, they had snow in Montana 2 days ago. I saw a photo of spring practice football, and they're playing in the snow. Okay, so here we go. Shauna Lay's checking in. Hot in Maine. Well, there's a twist, right? It's hot in Maine and cool in Texas. The Vols are playing for the College World Series. Can I do a College World Series chart? Who are they playing against? One of the North Carolina teams or Florida teams? That's who I kind of saw at the end, right? It's either North Carolina State, North Carolina, or what, Florida. So who are they playing? I'm not sure. But that's cool. Animals of Florida. Ba ba do ba 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 do ba ba. Mary Lee's here. Hi, Mary. Speaking of Tennessee, the solstice. Monica Farrow checking in from the great state of Louisiana. Let's see who else we have here. There's Scott Jerzik. Queen Lisa checking in from Florida. Lisa Dawn T. Seguin. Good morning. Amy Gill, happy solstice to you. Red Sky Night, Sailor's Light. There we go. Thank you, Shirley. Thank you for completing my thought. Barbara Boots, booting up in the Virginia area. What's going on, Barbara? The Fix. Last night I was watching this documentary on the US Festival. And first of all, I looked at him and I said to myself, man, I missed out by not going to the US Festival. It looked like those people were having an insane amount of fun. And then I thought to myself, remember, this is 1983. I thought to myself, this is peak America. The US Festival to me is a representation of peak America. It is the Woodstock of the 80s. Steve Wozniak throws what? He threw a shit ton of money at that. $20 million, which in 1983 was a lot of money, 300,000 people. And you don't hear any like tragic stories about the US Festival. And then when you see the people there having fun and partying, I'm telling you, it's peak America right there. Let's see. Misbehaving too. What's happening with you? Mo Harrison, checking from Naples. Aaron Ellis here. Early mornings are generally pretty pleasant, but it's already heating up. Okay. Celeste Loveheart. I work in retail. Crazy schedule. What's retail like these days? I think it depends on the retail you're working. Jeff Rosen, my man. Some more Florida. Janice Phillips. Janice the Gem from OK has entered the chat. We got ladies and gentlemen, Janice the Gem. She's entered the chat. Gotta let everybody know. Let's see. What else is happening? Chatting with Americans on the phone. How can I help? Another healing day from Idaho. Another day healing from Idaho. Well, they can be both. They're not mutually exclusive. And we wish you a happy and rapid ramp up with your new friend, your new hip. That's your friend. Think of it as your friend. You're getting to know each other. Emmy Green, buenos dias. I mean, there's my man Curtis Moonflower. Blessings from Tucson. Right on, brother. Let's see, Kelly B. Morning back. Integrity and Karma. INK checking in. Good to see Laura E. Good morning from Vermont. You got a heat wave up there, apparently, huh? Cool. There we go. Like button just smashed. Thank you, JR. Let's see. Got a lot of Florida in the house, man. Moira in New York City, also known as Chocolate City. New York City is now known as Chocolate City. If you have seen Eric Adams' press conferences, he's certainly proud of the fact that, have you ever seen more chocolate before? He's talking about his city appointees, right? All the people that are going to be beholden to Eric Adams. So New York City is now officially Chocolate City, or the chocolate apple. The chocolate apple. I always used to like a good, candy apple as a kid. And then there were two versions, right? There was the one with the hard sugar, right? The hard sugar candy apple, which was kind of a conundrum in some ways. Like you almost had to break your fucking teeth to get to the apple, but it was kind of cool because you were kind of breaking through that crustial layer, right? And then you get down into the apple, which is kind of soft and juicy. It was a kind of an interesting experience, but I think it was dangerous too, right? Like it was kind of dangerous. So then they went to the caramel apple with the little peanuts on it, which wasn't bad. It had its own. It had its. I haven't had a candied apple in years. Let's see, Harry Bowie. Hey, Doug Rowe. What's happening, Doug Rowe? Let's see. Who else we got? The Bisou. What's going on, to Bisou? Janice says, I have Venus and Merc in Cancer. Very intuitive and very domestic, very crafty. Glemma Spank, what's going on? Claire. Europa. Doug Rowe, Uranus, 0 Cancer. All right. So today the sun is lighting up your Cancer, your Uranian vibes. Interesting. Let's see. Good to have you here, Doug. Central Cali, cool start. Good. Good. Tomorrow around 17 UTC is Cancer. Janice Phillips, I thank you for that because we are in the last day of Gemini and we have to honor that. Curtis Moonflower thrives in the heat. Well, you'd have to thrive in the heat if you live in Arizona, right? Absolutely. Let's see who else we have. Snow in Pikes Peak last night. See, it's getting weird, man. It's climate change. You know why? Because the climate will change. Hot and humid in Indiana. I would expect that from Indiana. Hot and dry in the Sooner State. We were just up in the Sooner State. We were in Tulsa, which I enjoyed a lot. Let's see who else do we have. Oh, versus Texas A&M. Oh, you're playing the Aggies, huh? Interesting. I'll have to check it out. Julie Moss. Let's see, Julie. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Giga Maggies. Are we all caught up? Did they cancel World War III today? No. I think we still have some time left, right? Who was this? It was that Indian astrologer, some Indian astrologer, the Nostradamus of the 21st century. This was the day, right? Yeah, I don't know. I didn't feel it. But the middle of July is definitely a date you want to circle on your calendar. No, because I imagine working retail involves a lot of what people. It depends on where you are. Depends on where you are. Like we don't get a lot of shoplifting here in Texas. Honestly, there's still penalty for that. Believe it or not. Hey Lamar, what's happening? Soul Traveler retail is awesome if you're a peep person. Yeah. Again, I think it depends on the retail, right? Like if you like the space, you love the product, and you attract a particular type of client, I think it could be really cool. Really cool. And let's see what else do we have here. Terry Catterley getting ready for work. He feigns he is dark chocolate, but he is milk chocolate. We're talking Eric Adams. Man, I don't know if I've ever met a more outwardly corrupt politician. Even Willie Brown had more savoir faire than Eric Adams. And that's saying something, right? Magic Mika, woohoo back. We got a good house here today. All right, I should get into the weather. Oh, rabbit hole astrology. Shoplifting is crazy bad in Ohio. Business is good. People are spending like no tomorrow because maybe there will be no tomorrow. Let's see. In Arlene Vega, I think Eric Adams is really short. He's born in the year of the rat. He's a rat. Oh, yeah, we got Mark in the house. Rabbit hole astrology. I just kind of skipped over that. There's my man. What's going on, brother Mark? My antipode. Let's see. All right. I'm from New York City. That mayor is so odd. That's really an understatement. That's an understatement. He's beyond odd. All right. Let's get into the weather. The Astro Weather. Oh, that's not what we want. That's not what we want. We want that right there. All right. Let's zoom in a little bit. Zoom a little bit more for all you silver surfers like myself. All right, here we go. Ah, the last days of Gemini. 29 degrees. There's a lot of interesting people born on this. I had the pick of the litter for the star of the day. And I think last year I did Errol Flynn. Today's Errol Flynn's birthday. Talk about a complicated character. Holy shit. It's also Audie Murphy's birthday. I just find Audie Murphy's story really hard to believe. Like he killed 256 people in World War II. And when you read his story, he spent half of World War II in the fucking hospital, for various ailments, malaria or some kind of gunshot. And yet he still has time to find, he has the time to kill 256 people. When you read his story, in a lot of ways, it doesn't make any sense. Right? It doesn't make any sense. And it almost, he grew up here in Texas and, he hunted a lot. He was a really good shot. You can't take anything away from Audie Murphy in terms of his marksmanship, apparently. But it almost feels like he's a bit of a plant, and he comes out of the war and he becomes a movie star and stars in his own life story to hell and back. I mean, think about that. You're in a movie about World War II, and it's about a guy who is a big hero, and you're that guy, and you're playing that role. I mean, I, shit like that doesn't happen these days. I'm just trying to think, right? Like, I guess now it'd be more like reality TV, but then he goes on to star in all these westerns, and it's almost like he's he's there to sell the war or the I don't know. I don't want to get in the weeds with Audie Murphy. It's just a weird story. And I ran across. I'll talk more about this on the star of the day. I ran across a really odd anomaly with the star of the day that has nothing to do with our star of the day. All right, 29 degrees, Gemini. The energy today is kind of flat, right? It's flat. And if you wanted to take the day off and do nothing, I would not have a problem with that at all. We have Sun square Neptune. I don't think this is a day to push it. Don't push it, right? This is not a push a day. This is a day, I think, if you can, to recoup, relax, meditate, kick your shoes off, daydream, if you can do it. If you can't do it, that's a whole other story. But how would I say this? I wouldn't have a lot of expectations about the day, right? I wouldn't have a lot of expectations about being productive or meeting goals or anything like that. And I do think this is a day where you could probably at some point just nod off and fall asleep. If you're a nap person, that'll be easy for you. But if you're not a nap person, this is a day where you can become a nap person. That's where the energy is at. Now, when we have a lull in the energy like this, there's also a tendency for influences to creep into our life, right? Because when we're up and we're active, we're productive, we're positive, and we're doing all the things that theoretically we can do and we're here to do. And we have a day where the energy is flat and you're just kind of not engaged in the same way. Especially with this Sun Neptune square, it would be easy for influences to enter your life, right? It's almost like kind of having your guard down a little bit. And with that Sun Neptune square, the membrane, I think, is very permeable with our emotional state, right? So just be aware, right? Be aware if you don't have a lot of energy, if you're not really feeling like, hey, I'm here to conquer the world. And then, hey, if you are, great. You may be having something in your chart, like, I don't know, maybe you've got a Mars aspect that's in sextile or trine with the sun at this degree. In which case, you're like, hey, let's go, right? Or maybe even a square with Mars around this degree. So where would the square be? Maybe Virgo or Pisces, and that you would almost have to stimulate action, even at that degree. But by and large, anoretic, there's nothing. This is a flat day. But again, if you just say, hey, you just have to watch how far you drift. That's the only caveat. Just watch how far you drift, because I do think it's one of those days where some unwanted influences can creep in. This is a day where if you were not paying attention, you could probably get demoralized. I was reading the Twitter feed this morning, and Fox News now says that Biden has a lead in the polls over Trump. Now, if you believe that, uh, I've got an iceberg to sell you, which I don't even own. I mean, that's just complete and utter bullshit, right? But if you again were not moved towards some degree of indignation or anger, and you were a HSP or highly sensitive person, and that news comes across the ticker during a day like today, that can be very depressing news. And not depressing in the sense that uh, Biden has a lead on Trump, but depressing in the sense that you can see that the news is manufactured and it feels like Groundhog Day. And here we go again. Right. So maybe this is a really good day to just unplug and not listen to any of that shit. Right. I think that would be a worthwhile strategy. Not everybody can do it. But maybe this is a day to just say, hey, look, I'm not going to be on the internet. I'm not going to read the feed. I'm not going to do social media. Me, I can't do that because I have things to do, right? I do these because, you know, it's part of the gig, right? But if you can, I would just unplug today, you know, tap out, go hit nature, read a book, do something different because I feel like there's a lot of um, Sturm and Drang. There's a lot of toxicity sort of in the news sphere today. Even when you get this Mercury Venus square to Neptune, and it's like, who can you believe? Who can you trust? I thought I trusted that person. I believed in this person. This person was somebody I thought I could, really bank on. And again, there can be that in your personal life as well. But, publicly, there's that connection. And so I feel like today is one of those days where you like we all get let down from time to time, right? We all get let down. But today's one of those days where you can ameliorate that by, I would say, managing your relationship with your intake. Easy. It's an easy thing to do, right? Now let's talk about where you can put your energy. Yeah, we got that Mars and Taurus, and we have a little sextile action going on there. So, like, get out in nature, right? Taurus is nature. Taurus is the earth, and Cancer is all about, you know, nurturing and growing. So we had some talk of chickens and garden in chat, and if you have any of that, today's a good day for that. I would say, get out of synth world and get into analog world today. So if you're going to take time out and not be engaged in what I would call the pollution of the uh, infosphere, right? Go out, work in your garden, walk on the beach. Hell, even take a walk around your neighborhood or something, right? But I mean, this is one of those days where it's much more preferable to do those things because there is some energy there, right? There is a reward if you do something like that. So I guess the idea here is to stay away, at least for until the sun goes into Cancer, because that's a whole game changer, right? I mean, the game really changes, even though the sun will technically still be in square with Neptune, but it's in a water sign, so it's a bit different. Um, but that's where, this is where the opportunity is in the energy today. So check out, kick back, be productive in other ways that are more organic. And and even if you have a business or you have business to attend to, right? I would say try to get it done and then save some of the day for doing exactly what I'm recommending you to do. right? Mars can be helpful in that regard. Like get it done and then, you know, check out and be in nature. Go organic. Um, so we still have that Jupiter Pluto trine, which is good. Uh, again, I still think that there's. I'll repeat this until Jupiter moves out of the trine, and there's still investment opportunities. So there are people there that are out there that are into crypto and the stock market, and there's money to be made right now. And it's weird, right? Because we have all this inflation and the price, we actually have a stagnating housing market. So you would think that things aren't happening financially, but that's not really true. In fact, I think the stock market, the zombie stock market, has been trending incredibly high. So the investment minded of you out there, right? You can still work it. And anything related to Gemini, it's going to be technology, information, communication. I also think that, and I know you're not going to like this, but things that are related to AI and robotics, that's like there's an investment opportunity there. Like, do you want to invest in your own uh, obsolescence? I don't know. Maybe if you find somebody who's doing something interesting and good, but that to me, that's Jupiter and Gemini. Basically what it's doing is it's mirroring systems and mirroring models that we already have, but sort of like the next level of those models. Uh, what else is happening? Uranus sextile to Saturn. Saturn's about ready to go retrograde here. So we're hitting peak Saturn in the second decan and almost in the third decan. It's almost there. It's almost creeped into that scorpionic decan, and it's going to go retrograde very, very soon. But the thing that I like about this Saturn Uranus sextile is that there are, radical ideas and radical approaches to uh, theoretically understanding reality that are, or interacting with reality, that translate more easily into the mainstream. So if you think about like political dialogue or discourse, or like for me, I'll just be straight up, right? Like I've never seen another time in my life where a large number of people have spoken out against APAC and Israel's influence in Washington D.C. You know, as a force, as a lobby force through APAC. I mean, even Thomas Massey talked about this with Tucker Carlson. Which I don't know how many people have seen that interview. Probably 3 million people at this point in time, right? So these are radical conversations that I remember back in the early 2000s. Walt Mearsheimer wrote a pretty significant book on the exact same thing I'm talking about. And they had a very difficult time. I believe it's Stephen Mearsheimer, right? Or Stephen, anyway, Walt and Mearsheimer, the two professors that wrote this book about the the power of the Israeli lobby through APAC. And they were kind of shut down, but they're back again. And now, there are millions of people that are waking up to this. And it's not just, quote unquote anti Semites, right? It's people on the left and the right that are figuring this out. And so this is what I'm talking about, right? With Uranus sextile to Saturn, like something radical has an easy ingress into the mainstream. Saturn is the mainstream. And that's just one thing I could think of at the top of my head. But I think it's an important one. Well, why is that? Well, because Israel's sun is right there at I believe 25 degrees Taurus, right? So that's why it's sort of top of mind, as they say. And I don't know. I think we've entered into an era of discourse that is really interesting and very very Aquarian, very Pluto and Aquarius. Uncovering things that are not always easy or fun to look at through things like social media and or videos. Tucker Carlson just had I forget his name. I think his last name is Williams. I've never seen this guy before, but he's kind of an expert on Martin Luther King. And his the 2 hours with Tucker Carlson are they're it's worth the time because this guy is blowing the lid off of MLK. And I've known about MLK for years, right? Like if you've gone down that path, you kind of know where he came from. First of all, he's a full-blown communist, and second of all, he's a total reprobate. And again, that's one of those conversations. Martin Luther King has been a sacred cow in American politics, right? And it's this guy spending close to 3 hours blowing the lid off of Martin Luther King and a bunch of other topics. Even menthol cigarettes and why they were marketed to the black community. I mean, aside from all the other bullshit going on in the world, and there's a lot of bullshit, there's a lot of really interesting uncovering going on if you're paying attention in a way that I've never seen before. So that's again this Uranus sextile to Saturn. And I guess in your own life, right? Like you could look at this and say, okay, well, how do I integrate a more experimental approach, streamline it, and make it more of a daily practice or something more mainstream in my own life? If you want to break it down on a personal level. We have the moon in Sag today. We're going to stop here at the moon, get into the moon a little bit. Moon square Saturn. The moon in Sag, very expansive. Doesn't rest on ceremony, right? Honest, theoretically, expression of one's emotions. We're coming out of the opposition with Jupiter, which is interesting because Jupiter is the ruling planet of Sag. So there may be still a little bit of an emotional hangover in some ways of excess, especially if you partied last night. But you know, that's not really the aspect that I'm interested in today. I'm interested in the square to Saturn, right? Because again, the moon in Sagittarius is about emotional authenticity and truth. And squaring Saturn and Pisces, sometimes Saturn and Pisces can be really stodgy, especially when it comes to ideas like religion and orthodoxy, right? So the moon in Sagittarius kind of wants to blow the lid off of that. We're in conflict here, right? We're in conflict with a more authentic emotional expression versus how things are done day after day after day, month after month after month, year after year after year, right? So today is one of those days where, again, uh, emotionally, we're not in sync. We're not in sync with the status quo. So again, shrink that down, put it into your own life, and that's another good reason to get your work done and tap out and enjoy the Sag moon. Go on a hike, right? Sagittarius is a sign related to nature, big spaces. So there you go. We got some ink conjuncts. The moon is saying, take the day off. Mars and Taurus wants to grind. Get it done. Get it done. Get it done. And then we still have this Pluto. It's kind of ending today. But the Pluto in conjunct with Venus, and then the Pluto in conjunct with the Sun. The Pluto in conjunct with the Sun is interesting, and I'm going to save that discussion for tomorrow. since we can have that discussion tomorrow. All right, let's get into our True Hemp Science star of the day. And let me get back to the old banner, the band space, the Bruce banner. Here we go. And I will even bring up our star of the day as I talk about Chris and his great CBD products over at truehempscience.com. Go there, check it out, truehempscience.com. And if you spend $100 or more, type in 15MINS and you will get a free goodie bag with your order and you will enjoy the goodie bag. I stand by that wholeheartedly. $150 more gets you free shipping, and there's always a 30-day money back guarantee. So check it out. Go there if you want. If you want to talk to Chris, you can make an appointment, ask him questions about the product. He's got great stuff for your internal use, your external use, and one of the best products is the sleep gummies. So go on over there, check it out. 15MINS is your code to get the goodies. All right, let's talk about Brian Wilson, shall we? Now, there's so many people I could have chose today. Today's kind of an interesting day, and there's a strange anomaly that I found. But let me talk about Brian Wilson first. I think Brian Wilson qualifies as a cluster chart, right? I would put him in the cluster chart territory. So, what is a cluster chart? A cluster chart is when a group of planets are kind of all bunched up into one area, kind of like this right here, right? And then I guess we could throw in the moon and Neptune, and it's just a wide cluster. So, one of the things that I've noticed about people with cluster charts is that they're kind of like savants and they do like one thing really well, or they have one area of their life that they are just compelled and driven to do, right? So there's a bit like cluster chart people at times can be OCD because everything is so compact and concentrated. That's one sort of quality of a cluster chart. And the other quality of a cluster chart is that all the other areas of their life kind of go to shit, right? And they actually need other people to take care of them in some way, right? So, a strong partner could, make the meals, clean the houses, and all the other stuff, right? Or uh, Katy Perry has a cluster chart. There's only a couple things Katy Perry theoretically can do well. Maybe sing and dance. That's about it, right? And she's not a mother. She's not married. Uh, but I bet she's got a bunch of people that take care of shit for her. There's other people with cluster charts, but that's one that just comes to my mind. But let's look at Brian Wilson. He's got Uranus on the ascendant. Look at that. So he's going to be different, right? He's going to be different. And his Uranus is in Taurus, which is in detriment. It's not the best place for, I'm sorry, it's Gemini. My bad. Uranus and Gemini is interesting. But again, it kind of makes him a bit schizo. Brian Wilson has a break with reality. He's a Taurus rising, 27 degrees, conjunct Algol, and their dad was he wasn't as bad as, what's his name? The Jackson 5's dad. But he was a showbiz dad. Like, he kind of ran the brothers, right? It was like they had talent, and he kind of drove them. And I think Brian probably wanted to say things about his father that he couldn't because of this connection with Algol. And he's got Venus in Taurus. I think this is a really interesting placement for him. When when you hear the song "In My Room," right? I get Venus in Taurus. in the 12th house. Like that's where he wants to be. He wants to be in the studio with the Wrecking Crew. He does not want to be on tour, right? He's got that South Node in Pisces right on the cusp of the 10th and the 11th house. The 11th house is the band, right? So he gets the part of fortune, which is the good side of the band, right? But he also has the South Node there, and he also kind of hates being there. It's like I've been there. I've been in the band before. I'm not sure I want to be in the band this time. And his true node is in Virgo, right? Which is, yeah, it's the other thing about Brian. It's a little OCD, right? Like he was this crazy perfectionist in a lot of ways. Crazy perfection, almost over perfect with the true node in Virgo. And you can see also the effect of the father here, right? With Chiron and Leo in the 4th house. That's the home. And when you're young, the sun is the father, and the sun being ruled by Leo. So between the age of 11 and 13, Brian had a bit of a break down, right? That period between 11 and 13 will mark his life. He's got a strong relationship with his siblings, obviously, Carl and Dennis. There's Mars in the 3rd, and there's Pluto, Mars-Pluto conjunction. So he's productive with his siblings. And even the sextile, right? And this is in Leo. So it's all creative. This is a very creative conjunction. And it's sextiling Uranus and sextiling Saturn. So you can see that Brian Wilson was insanely creative, right? But he's also a little insane because, yeah, again, Mars in the 3rd house is restless. It doesn't settle for anything, right? It's always kind of, moving on and moving on and moving on and moving on. And I also find it interesting that Wilson winds up working with older people with the Wrecking Crew because Saturn is here. That's the dad, right? So he's got this weird relationship with the dad. But if you look at the Wrecking Crew, who were literally and figuratively instrumental on a lot of the Beach Boy records, they're all older than he is. And they loved him. He had everything figured out in his brain. He had everything scored in his brain. Mercury in Gemini, right? So he's fast. He moves on to a lot of different things. The other thing about Brian Wilson is that he was very collaborative, and I think that this Mars Pluto conjunction, and not just with his brother or his brothers, and even Venus, right? The Venus Neptune trine. Let's get into that for a second. Like, he wrote a lot of songs with this guy named Van Dyke Parks, and so he is a collaborator, but he's a collaborator behind the scenes. Like there's this whole secretive part of Brian and that Venus Neptune trine, right? So he needs people like Van Dyke Parks to create lyrics for these kind of modern orchestral pieces that he was creating. And you could tell that he was also very much influenced by Phil Spector because he was around during that time as well, right? But I think things get wonky for him with Neptune as well. That's where he's got that Sun Neptune square. I think he's incredibly shy, right? He eventually winds up losing complete faith and ability in everything he does. He gets fat and sloppy, right? That's the Sun Jupiter conjunction. 2nd house, Jupiter and Cancer. He just gets fat and sloppy. He takes a bunch of drugs, gets high all the time, eats a bunch of food, becomes very disinterested in everything except for, noodling for a while. And then he's saved by, Dr. Eugene Landy, who becomes his Svengali in a lot of ways. He saved his life. No matter what you think of Eugene Landy, he saved his life. Like Brian Wilson, we don't have Brian Wilson today without the crazy motherfucker psychiatrist, self-help guru. But there's a lot of conflict emotionally in Brian's chart with all these squares to the moon. It's like never good enough, right? Even that Saturn square to the moon with his father, it's just like never good enough, never good enough, never good enough, never good enough, and extremely hard on himself with the moon in Virgo. It's a very interesting chart, and you can see sort of the focus and the concentration of self-expression and creativity, and also the breakdown with all those squares with Neptune, and the real challenge of perfectionism in living up to something that you know for him he could never really do, the external and internal expectations of what Brian was all about. Anyway, fascinating chart, fascinating individual. A lot of people think some of the later Beach Boy music is overrated, like Pet Sounds. I like Pet Sounds. I don't think it's a one of the greatest records of all time, like some people do. But there's no denying that Brian Wilson was a genius, a bona fide genius. Okay, that's our star of the day. Thank you for being here. The anomaly that I wanted to share with you is that I was looking at the chart of Patrice Cullors of Black Lives Matter and Grace Potter, who is this rock star, right? Very talented, Grace Potter in the Nocturnals. They have the exact same fucking chart. They're born on the same day, and their ascendant is like 4 degrees apart. And how different did their lives turn out? It's amazing. Anyway, thanks for being here. We'll be back tomorrow with the Friday forecast, and come on over to 15 minutes. We will have a follow up to the story we talked about yesterday, which was the scandal inside the Texas Children's Hospital. And if you saw it, you're gonna want to jump in on today's show. All right, take care, everybody. You have everything you need. Remember that. Stay blessed, and bye for now.